Guys, welcome back to Shit Creek Survivors, where we share stories of resilience and tools for resilience. This week is a follow-up to our last week's episode with Glen called Upgrade Your Entourage. Growth, grit, good swings, and great people. Turns out having positive people around you actually makes you more positive, believe it or not. Glen talks about this in his last episode. We're going to talk about it, and not only that, but building on Glen's wisdom, this episode is about a total game improvement plan from your mindset, your actions, and your network. Let's get it. What's up?
Nothing much. How you doing, man?
I am good. Living the dream, talking to you.
Yeah.
I believe today we're going to be kind of following up on what we discussed with Glenn, and let's talk about a little bit of your golf. How did golf
Yeah.
go that day?
Well, yeah, the league's been going good. Yesterday we played. We didn't have a league, but we all got together and played anyway because it's the day after the holiday. But the other day when we recorded with Glenn, that was good. I got to go out and talk to some military guys that are like-minded and probably all have some of their own little hidden demons and can relate to some of the things that we talk about. A few people had asked about the site and asked me to send it to them on emails and text and stuff. So we got a couple more people viewing at least, and so that's good. And
Yeah. I looked the other day on Facebook. We've got over 300 followers.
awesome.
And, that's
Thank you
pretty
guys for doing
interesting.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for following. It's encouraging. I know it's easy to say, oh, we're just doing this, for the better good and all that kind of stuff. But when, you get tapped on the shoulder every now and then by that motivation or lack of motivation beast, that's kind of like, hey, is this doing
Yeah.
anything? And I'm like, like, what are you doing? And so I've had to come to terms with doing anything, whether it be for good or for bad or whatever. It can be very tiring. You just have to stay the course and be resilient and kind of just believe in what you're doing and be silly. And if it helps one person, it helps one person. So we're
Yeah.
good to go. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, we can't do it without you guys. Those likes and those subscriptions and those shares are going to help reach somebody else that might need to hear some of the messages. It makes their day just a little bit easier because they
Yeah.
realize that they're not suffering alone or whatever. So thank you very
Yeah.
much for everybody watching and sharing and liking. Even if it's not helping you, it could help somebody else. So do it.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
Absolutely.
those golf parables to life is still exist. I mean, I was talking to you, texting you about how I'm excited about this little tournament thing that I signed up for. It's
Well, it's not a
because
little tournament. Tell everyone what it actually
well,
is.
it's still amateur. It's a paid tournament. It's an amateur tournament. I mean, you have to have your golf index going in and your all that. So it's a little bit more serious than just a fundraiser or a scramble or anything like that. And I don't have any delusions of grandeur of like coming in there tin cupping it or whatever. And I was just going over the list of for myself kind of benefit, but also just telling it to Cam. I'm like, seriously, I don't have a lot of expectations for this. I'm excited to see what it's like. I want to do my best. I know how I can be on the golf course sometimes, and it can get a little frustrating. And if a lot of people are watching me, I feel like it's going to be amplified. So I'm going to have a lot of chances to try to stay out of my head and work on that aspect of it, that mental aspect of the game. The toughest or the toughest 6 inches is between your ears, right?
Yeah. No, I
So
agree.
there's that. And I was like, after I got done making the list of like, no, I just want to do good. I don't want to give up. I don't want to feel overwhelmed. I want to work on my game. And it's like, wait a minute, these are all variables to like resilience training and talks that we talk about in life. I want to be better. I want to think better. I want to react better. I want to control myself better in life and in golf. So it was just another reminder of when I was reading. I go, I need to mention this up on the podcast just in case it resonates with somebody else out there. So
No, I agree. That can be the hardest part of the game because when I've been playing well before, once I realize it, it's almost like I stop playing to win and I start playing not to lose. Well, yeah, we've talked about this many times, but you're like, oh, don't fuck up, don't fuck up, don't screw up, don't screw up, don't screw up. And so my best round I ever played, what I did is try to stay out of my head as much as possible. Well, actually, that doesn't sound instead of thinking about what was going on, what could go on, blah, 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 I started doing math problems in my head between holes.
yeah, just to kind of distract you a little bit.
Absolutely. And it was just
Yeah.
basic stuff like 2 plus 2 is 4, 4 plus 4 is 8, 8 plus 8 is 16, 16 plus 16 is 32.
So
You know
can
what I
this
mean?
Could just be like
30,
counting to 10 so you don't get angry
just
in a
just
situation in your life.
doubling. Yeah, and it
Well,
worked.
yeah, it makes sense. I mean, if you try to hit the ball too hard and swing as hard as you can, you tense up all your muscles and everything goes out of whack and you don't hit the ball very
Yeah,
well.
for sure.
Same thing with your mind. You can overthink things and overanalyze and over examine, and all of a sudden you're overwhelmed and not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So yeah, a little distraction is a good idea. I might try to remember that one. Just do some math problems. I
It's
usually just try to
it's
look at the sky or this trees or a bird or something and realize that I'm in nature and this is fun. And it doesn't
Mhm.
matter. It really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things how I swing this next shot. Just go have fun. You know what to do. Hit the ball and make contact with the ball. You don't have to kill it. Make contact with the ball. Let the club do its work, and bam. So what's that with life? Yeah, re-examine your thoughts, tools that work for your stress relief, your exercise, you're talking to a buddy, you're reading the Bible, you're reading a self-help book, you cooking something, working in the garden, going fishing, whatever it is. Those are your little tools to help you with, and so you just gotta focus on those tools, and the tools do the work.
Yeah, I like that. I heard recently that resilience isn't like so much of a thing or a quality, it's a practice.
Yeah.
So being, actually doing the work out there and instead of just being
Theo
like, well, I
Vaughn said
hope this
something like
goes.
that too. He's like he's got to work on himself every day. He's talking more about addiction, but it's very similar mental
Yeah.
thing hurdles going on here. Yeah, he says you got to work on it every day. Every day you got to look at yourself in the mirror and examine what you're doing, what you've done wrong, what you've done right, and just keep making steps forward.
Yeah. And that's actually really interesting because our last guest that we had on, Glenn, he really talked about that. You know what I mean? He said that, he class I won't say classic, but kind of parallels our story. Had PTSD, didn't really talk to anyone about it, kind of self-isolated, used, pleasure-seeking behaviors like I did, alcohol. He used alcohol himself. Things kind of fell apart. He ended up losing a little bit of his, I guess he lost his family.
Yeah.
But when things changed, he said it's when he went up to that cabin and he was kind of like self-isolating. But there was a point where it sounded like he started getting honest with himself and started claiming what he had added to the situation or what he had contributed to the situation. And that is a hard skill, to
Mm-hmm.
be honest with yourself, because I don't know about anyone else
Thousand
out there.
percent.
Yeah, for me, I'd almost sometimes rather believe a lie that I'm doing well than actually take on the burden of, no,
Accountability.
you could do better.
Well,
Do
yeah,
what?
accountability. Take on the burden of accountability. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Because
it feels like it's built into our system somehow deep down. We want to be right, and you'll fight
yeah,
tooth and nail to stay right a lot of times. Heck,
to
I
the
mean,
death sometimes.
your body does it too. You start losing weight, your body wants to gain that weight back as fast as it can, even if the weight being lost is healthier. If your body's been one weight for a long period of time, it's going to want to stay that one weight. It doesn't want to lose weight,
Yeah,
and you have to make it. You have to have that self accountability, self awareness, self control, and you have
that
to
is
make it
true.
happen.
You almost have to like prove to your body, hey, you're not going to starve. We're
Yeah.
we're now doing, like, if you were to go into like intermediate fasting, it's like you're not starving. We're just not eating during this period of time, and then the food will come. And then
Yeah.
once you kind of train your body that, then it understands, because your body at some points is like, if you suddenly do a fast out of nowhere and it doesn't like, it literally thinks you've been cut off from food, and that it needs to hold on to everything it possibly can, use anything that can be burned quickly, and store all that good stuff,
It
And
gets
that's what,
greedy with all that stored energy.
yeah, yeah, it just
Like
wants to hold
sometimes they
it
get
and
greedy
hold
with
it
money.
and hold, yeah, it just wants to hold on to it. And then eventually, though, you teach yourself over years, you teach your
Yeah.
body, okay, you're not going to die. This is working.
Anytime we need
Uh,
it, we can get it.
yeah,
Anytime we have to
yeah,
have it, we can. It's available right there. It's right
right.
there. It's not inside here. We don't have to store it here anymore. We have it stored out here. We can get it anytime we want. We're no longer living in a cave. We have the devices and technology to put things in refrigerators and store them and make them, have longer shelf lives or get fresh things right there. Bam, anywhere you want.
Yeah, that's the big thing for me. I got to stay away from the sweets because my brain still wants, well, there's a couple layers here. One is alcohol. I'm an alcoholic. My brain craves sugar, and that sensor can kind of be hit sometimes. You'll see a lot of times at AA meetings, they'll have cakes, cookies, all this kinds of stuff. They literally used to give new people coming into AA who were literally like shaking because they didn't have a lot of medical withdrawal stuff in the hospitals yet. They would literally hand them a cup of orange juice with vodka in it and be like, drink this. We're going to titrate you down off the alcohol, and
Yeah.
then so they wouldn't literally have a seizure and fucking die right there in the middle of the meeting. You know what I mean? It was like drink this orange juice. Anyway, the body
And
was
now you're
so
telling me there was
used to it.
vodka in it.
Yeah. And your body gets so used to that sugar that that's part of the withdrawal. Is your body is actually going, where the fuck is this sudden rush of sugar? Where, you know, what I mean, all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. So you'll see like alcoholics eating you know, candy a lot and all that kind of stuff. It's whatever works for you, obviously. And for a long time, I needed that sugar, but eventually I was able to kind of wean myself off of it and like let my body know we don't need all this sugar. The human body was never designed really to take on that much at the same time. You know,
Yeah.
like I'm not supposed to drink 12 beers. 12 beers is not good as far as the body goes. You know, it's like that's a
Right.
lot of sugar, that's a lot of energy. Let's store it and like all that kind of stuff. Same with food, all that kind of stuff, and when you eat. Anyways, I think I'm getting off a little on the tangent, but yeah, it all rounds back to we got to get honest with ourselves. What am I doing? What am I contributing to the problem that I see in my life? Instead of looking at all the outside and being like, this is your fault. This is your fault. It wouldn't have happened if not for this, or this situation should have gone like this. It's actually getting onto ground level and being like, the only person that can fix this is me. And the only way I can fix this is if I'm honest with myself.
Yeah.
Because, and I got to the point where it was like time was ticking. It was like, you have to do it now. Like there's a timer on this, and you're literally going to drink yourself to death. It has to happen now. And the only way I could do that was through faith in Jesus. You know what I mean? That's eventually when I was just like at the end of my rope and didn't have any more in the tank, and I hit my knees and I was like, I can't do this alone. I don't know if God actually, I know God planned that for me. You know, it seems like everything that when I look
Yeah.
back at it now, all the dots connect. And it's like I had to be broken to get honest with myself and fully see what needed to be done, the good, the bad, whatever. I needed to see the size of the mountain, you
Yeah.
know, instead of just pretending, because what I was so used to doing on a daily basis, especially when I was drinking, was just hitting the pause button. I'll do it, but not today. I
Right.
can do it. I just don't want to today. You know, like all
Right.
these kinds of like, well, it's Wednesday. I'll start next week. You know, like, it's just like all that kind of stuff. And it's
Went
being
through that one a couple
brutally
times.
do what?
I went through that one a couple times myself too. Like trying to drink less and going, okay, that was a horrible weekend. I drank too much on the weekend. And then like Monday and Tuesday, I'd have a few to try to like hair the dog, to nurse the hangover to make that easier somehow. But then you still drink too much, and then you're like,
Yeah,
fuck it, it's Wednesday. I might as well wait till next week to do it.
yeah.
And you just do it. I mean, it's just because you're letting it win. And yeah, I mean, that sounded really simple, and I know that's not simple. It's not just
No,
that. I mean, it is just that. It's
but that's what's going. Yeah, it's just that's going on, and it seems like you're really rational, or I was really rational in those moments. And then I'd be like, all right, I'll start next week. You know, so Thursday was fun, Friday was fun, Saturday was like the last day, and then I'd get to Sunday and I have like anxiety about, well, tomorrow I got to change my life. Well, I might as well drink today. So I would drink, and then I wake up Monday and be like, oh, not today. And it's just it's a crazy cycle, but I mean, that has addiction all over it. That
yeah.
has pride all over it as well. Because when you've got addiction going on, you've also like, for
Well,
me at least,
there's a part of you probably. I think everybody probably that's been addicted to anything and realizes they've been addicted to it. At that moment, there's definitely a shameful thought because you're like, I was better than that. I wasn't going to be the guy that got caught up in that kind of thing.
right,
I bet you every single addict can say the same thing. I don't think
right,
there's anybody that's like, oh, I love being an addict. This is what I wanted to do all along.
right,
I wanted to be
yeah,
completely dependent on alcohol or drugs or whatever, sex.
yeah. It
Uh,
sucks when something like has your number and you want
yeah,
to beat
and
it.
it always knows how to tell you what. It always knows how to twist your button to make you get it for it to get its way.
Yeah.
That was easy to say.
Yeah, and what's cool is like these are almost therapy sessions. Like things come out like a spontaneous utterance, and you're like, well,
There's
and
like a moment that clicks. Like there's a part of the map that just got exposed, and now I see something I didn't see before, and I'm like, oh, wait, that's some
right.
cool things to do over there. I should go explore that map a little bit
Yeah. And what's cool about, I mean, at first, at least when you get honest with yourself, it can be pretty brutal. You know what I mean?
more. Should
And
be.
sometimes you shouldn't just go in and be brutally honest about your whole life all in one go. Because if it were me, I'd be like, if I was really in that mode, I'd be like, loser, 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 loser. But
Right.
that's not the way it needs to be. It's self
It's like you're trying to
accountability.
move one big boulder instead of doing your part, moving all the little boulders that you can until you get strong enough to move the bigger boulder.
Right. And for
Feeling
me, I would,
overwhelmed.
yeah, just like I'm gonna, and you have to feel like you have to attack it on a daily basis. You got to be super motivated. You got to be on top of it, like that sort of stuff. But what I'm learning is accountability and taking on kind of like the reality of the situation. Yes, it can feel shameful because it's like you're coming face to face with the things that you didn't want to be honest about. But at the same time, like it's actually a huge step and it takes a lot of courage. It is not just like a BS, like, well, I'm going to change my life. This is like boots on the ground. Like I have something going on in my life that I need to get better at. And instead of running at it in one go, it's like, why not break it into sections? You know what I mean? Instead of like my whole life is trash to be like, well, because that's the way I felt. Again, anything I say is like the way I felt. Like I felt like my whole life was trash. And now I look back at it, I'm one of the most blessed people in the entire world the entire time. I had a family who had my back and all this kind of stuff. I was just so in my head of how ashamed I was and what a loser I was. But then that would turn into me being a victim. And then I'd go after the people who I thought were on the other side of that. But it never was anyone else. I was always very just ashamed of where I was, and I would make up opinions for other people and how they were viewing me and even how they were talking to one another and all this kind of stuff. So when I had to get brutally honest, I had to, in that moment, separate myself and try to block out any perceived opinion that I had created for someone else. That sounds like a whole shit show, but really what you're doing is you're kicking everybody out of the room. That's say your brain's a room, you're kicking everybody out of the room. You're saying I need a
Yeah.
you look kind of at what you're doing, not what anyone else is doing. So if you were in a race, you're not looking at anybody else's lane, you're just looking down and you're trying to figure out what's my next step forward. What's the main thing? And for me, although my life all around seemed like it was in chaos, and it was, I mean, it was a scary time for a long period of time. I was, dramatically addicted to alcohol. It was like running everything. I've got PTSD going on. I've got childhood trauma that I don't want to talk about, all this kinds of stuff. So I had to pick like a section to start because moving
Yeah.
that big boulder wasn't going to work. So
Exactly.
for me, it was like the thing that was going to kill me right away was alcohol. So that's where I had to start. And I had to just check myself and my ego as much as I could. And it is a struggle to check your ego on a daily basis, on a 10-minute basis, and especially enough to get to an AA meeting. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot in me that was like you just said, this wasn't supposed to be me. I'm not an alcoholic, and especially when I first got into AA, I'm like, oh, I have an allergy. This is great. At least I can like diagnose it. I have an allergy. You know what I
And
mean? And sometimes I think when you hear like I have an allergy, not only are you like, oh, that's more acceptable, but when you have an
right.
allergy,
Well, it's a little bit of a scapegoat for your
exactly.
self-awareness and your self-accountability. It's a little bit of a scapegoat because it feels like you're still being accountable and giving
Yeah,
yourself the self-awareness to figure things out, but you're giving yourself the one that's not. You're giving the smoke and mirrors one, not the actual one.
exactly. And I think there's maybe and just talking about it right now, maybe there's an idea of a back door where man, I just kind of forgot where I was going. What'd you
I
just
don't know,
say?
but I had one that kind of hit me a second ago, so it's gonna be really unrefined. So we might have to work on this a little bit later if I mess it all up. But so I'm thinking in my head right now that what you're saying, like kicking people out of the room, all that stuff, parts of it. Okay, what if we put this whole scenario in a river? You're battling with an addiction, you're battling with a mental health crisis issue kind of thing. You're overcoming sex addiction, domestic abuse, you know, sexual
Yeah.
assault,
What?
whatever the things are, you're trying to overcome it by swimming upstream to get away, to get out of it, right?
Hmm.
When if you just self-aware where you're at, look to your left and your right, you're not that far away from the shore. You swim to the shore, the current takes you away from it a little bit. That's fine, but at least you're getting healthy. And during that time is when we snuck our extra drinks, and we were trying to say, oh, it's okay, still I'm still in the water. Once you get on land, you can walk back up to where you wanted to go without swimming upstream anymore. That's when you're sober. You're making progress and you're making steps.
Hmm.
So that's just the first part of it. It just jumped in my head like that. I feel like there's something
I
there to
like it.
refine. Stop swimming upstreams to get out of your fight. Stop swimming upstreams to get over your addiction. Stop swimming upstreams to get over whatever trauma you had. Take a breath. Look for the tools around you, the resources. Stop on a rock for a second and just float there for a second. Whatever. See what shore's closest. Get there. Get out of it. Get out of the water. Get out of the
Yeah.
addiction. Get out of the trauma. Get out of your head. Get out of the past. You can't change it. It's done. It's already happened. There's no way you can change it. It wasn't meant
Yeah.
to happen any other way because it didn't happen any other way.
And what I'm realizing, because I've had so many analogies, it's funny how analogies work because you have to find one that it like that works for you in the moment on that day, and that's when you have a click. That's when you have your own personal click. So we might be telling people like analogies of this and that, but it's really funny how you can get to a place and all of a sudden, like you may have been told it 10 times, but when you get to it, you're like, oh, this is like this and like this and
Yeah.
like this. And it clicks for you. And the person might be like, yeah, that's how I kind of feel over here. But until it clicks for you out there, the people who are listening, like you just got to
Some of
kind
this
of
might
find
sound
your
like
own
rubbish.
story.
Some of you
Yeah.
might turn it off. He's like, I don't understand this. But when you
No, it
rewatch it 5 years from now, it might make perfect sense, and then it'll click.
exactly. And what's crazy, and the reason I say that is because when I first started getting sober, when I first started getting back on my feet, when I really started doing my therapy for PTSD and all that kind of stuff, so we're talking about, yeah, you have to find your own analogy that's going to work for you the best. And when you have that click moment, hold on to it. Like really kind of like
Ride that
lean
wave.
into it.
I mean,
Yeah,
ride that wave. You got to
yeah,
click. You're making some progress. Ride it. Feel it. It's not going to last forever because tomorrow you're going to have to find another wave.
yeah. And I always have to
Wow,
remember
that makes
like
sense to me.
these are key moments where you can be like, all right, I'm moving forward. Like there you suddenly realize when you get this because you feel like you've done everything. You know what I mean? You've done everything, you're working really hard. Why isn't the boulder moving and all that kind of stuff? And then all of a sudden there's a click. Things start getting a little bit of momentum. You get so excited, you're running around telling everybody, this is the key, this is the key, this is the key. And then like again until they find their own moment, and it clicks, then they get on fire. But it's such a great moment to remember that if we, there's far more that we don't know than we do. And
Yeah.
I always forget that. I'm always like, I'm using all of my, there's no way through this from what I see. And then someone really quickly could tap you on the shoulder and be like, hey, did you think about going around instead of over? And you're like,
Yeah.
so you're saying I could go to the left, and then it's like the whole situation changes with a dash of you didn't know this little bit and you didn't know this little bit. You're like, oh well, shoot. Had I known that, I would have, But it takes time to get moving. It takes time to get your own momentum, and when you're on
And it
fire
takes
about it,
time and experience to get that outside the box thinking. You don't just get born with that. You have to actually go through
oh
some experiences where you have some outside the box thinking from somebody else or even by yourself where it works. And then
yeah,
it becomes like a whole nother variable, another perception and that freaking ball of perceptions and variables.
and that happens through self honesty.
Yeah.
Because suddenly the thing that you were shameful to admit, because you've actually shined some light on it, you've looked at it, you know what I mean? You have a better understanding of what's going on, and now you see a way through. So once that first click happens, you're like, okay, I see a way through this. Maybe there's other ways to get through the other things. Or, you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
just keeps, like you said, the sphere of perception just keeps clicking and
Yeah.
changing. And Glenn said that was the big thing for him when he got alone and he finally had to get very brutally honest with himself, and he found it to be very freeing. And so he's gone on in his life now in any relationship to just be his authentic self because he's learning to like be self-honest, learning to go beyond that and love himself for who he actually is, shine bright, and then attract the people who are those positive people like he was talking about. He was saying like one of the things I had to do is eliminate people who were taking time in my head in a negative manner. It wasn't worth it. I'm spending energy on something. I need to be surrounded with positive people who are shining a bright light, who care about me, who want to see me move forward because we're stronger together. And when you encourage someone and they get to the next level, you shine bright too. You're like, yes. And then you
Because
kind
it
of,
feels good.
absolutely,
This comes into those
absolutely
frequencies. Did we talk about the frequencies yet? Frequencies of emotions.
go for it.
Well, I'll make it
Remind me.
real quick. Real quick. Yeah, just like every frequency, every emotion has a frequency, and scientists have been able to measure it. There's something out there I watched the other day was talking about it again that I liked because he said they thought love was the highest frequency that we gave out. They did a test. People were telling stories about love. They were hitting the love frequency, but then there was another frequency that started appearing that was higher, and they didn't know what that was all of a sudden because it was sporadic and very small, just hit every once in a while. And they're like, well, now we got to revisit our data. And they went back and revisited the data, and every time those higher frequencies hit during the stories of love, everybody listening was getting goosebumps. So they decided that this was an authenticity frequency. When you're really being yourself and really letting it out, that's when that authenticity frequency hits and you get the goosebumps. And I'm getting them right now.
No, you have not shared that. That is amazing.
And isn't that
I
so
did not.
powerful?
It is.
So
I
if this
don't
is
know
true, we
why.
just need to get sound things doing, love frequencies all around us so we feel better.
I don't know why I need all these daily reminders of the beauty that's out there because I'm always, I hate that like suddenly I just like, I'm on the road and like, I don't see what's right in front of me. And it's been interesting. I've been working for that organization and doing the, spreading awareness for first responders and veterans with PTSD. If you count veterans and first responders together, we're losing 30 guys a day to PTSD related suicide. And it's literally happening in our own backyard. And we don't even talk about it. It's really alarming. So if anyone out there is listening and you have a first responder or a veteran in your world, reach out to them, check on them. It does make a difference, even when
Hey,
we
how are
act
you
like it.
doing? How are you
Yeah,
doing?
even when we act like it doesn't, it does make a difference. Okay, that's just kind of the way we deal with things. We're not hiding from you, we're hiding from the world. But the ministry of presence, just a call
Yep.
or just being on a couch, that's a big deal. And
Even
we've
if
talked
you
about
don't
it.
think you got through to them because they didn't really answer back or they answered real short, you still let them know you're thinking about them and you cared and you asked, and it's going to matter.
Yeah,
It's
it
going to hit.
does.
It's going to matter.
And every time I say that on the golf course, when people are coming up, it's usually on a par three. We set up a challenge as a way of raising donations for these people who are suffering. And people are just shocked most of the time. They're like 30, and I tell them right away. I'm like, the reason I say it, so you carry it off the course, and if you got a first responder or a veteran in your world, reach out to them, check on them. It does make a difference. And every time I say that to men, they all go. They don't say anything, but they go like this, and I'm
Because
like,
they can
I know
relate.
they know exactly where I'm at. Yeah. And especially when I run into veterans or first responders, they're like, absolutely. And it's just an interesting thing that, yeah, that you can be out there.
Exactly. And you know why we need those daily reminders? Because you're
I
not
try
going
to,
to not going to be able to cook today's breakfast with yesterday's coals.
ooh, ooh,
Smack.
you're not,
That one
you're
just came to
not
me.
going to be able to cook.
You
That's a
can't
good
cook
one.
today's food with yesterday's coals. You got to light another fire today and get your meals going. Get your nourishment.
I love it. That's going to be a short right there. So,
That's why you need the daily reminders. And it's normal. It's everybody. It's not just for first responders and military. I mean, they're different levels of trauma. I get it. And you're trying to separate them. I get it. But don't care about your 6-year-old's problems too. I mean, give them, how you doing every once in a while. Let them talk
yeah,
about their feelings. Let it normalize talking about feelings. Let's not make this next generation feel like, oh, they're tough men. Rub some dirt on it.
yeah. And
Can't be real.
And I think something I've learned, at the older I get, I think I used to, if someone came to me with a story of what was going on, the way I would respond to it was with another story of my own.
Yeah.
Oh, this happened to me, and then this happened, and this happened, blah, 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 blah. And now we're like comparing stories compared to if you sit next to someone who really, really cares about you, they will sit in silence and ask you how you are doing. Yes, you may bring in a story to parallel it so the person may be able to track where you're going with it. But at the same time, you're there for them. A lot of times, young men come together and they're like, well, this happened to you, this happened to me, this happened to you, this happened to me. And it's like,
The
instead of just
measuring
being,
contest.
yeah, we have to learn to be good listeners, and we don't have to be part of the conversation. We can just listen. But it's actually been proven that men have a harder time articulating how they feel through words than women do. So if you get men together and they're like, "How do you feel?" They're like, "You know what I mean?"
Go like a
And
beer.
usually get like, I don't know, I'm okay. You know what I mean? But that's really what they're able to formulate because they don't really understand what's going on. And I speak that from experience. You know what I mean? You know what's so crazy about PTSD and like mental illness and all that kind of stuff? Is so many times I wish that I could take it out of my head and show it to you. Be like, this is how much I hurt right now. This is all fucked up. You see this? All these chemicals, all messed up. See these medicines I have to take to make it regular, all messed up. You see these signals, how they're traveling? It's not supposed to go like that. See this aggression part that gets activated all the time? It's not supposed to be like that. And if you could pull yours out and be like, oh, they are different. Look at that. Then at least in a way, I would feel better. And in a way, I feel like I could communicate it better to you how I'm feeling. But unless a person has actually felt the way you're feeling, and I don't even know how to quantify that, do we
Yeah.
actually feel exactly the same? But until a person is like gone through the shit show, it's sometimes hard for them to understand how you could be feeling because they have a lack of experience, not
Right.
because your situation isn't as big as it feels to you. Do
Wow.
you get what?
Yeah, no, I do. I hear it completely. In fact, the thing I'm thinking in my head right now this whole time is like, I guess we need to really get better at stop saying, I know how you feel. Whenever you're talking to a friend, a buddy, a coworker about whatever problem it is, small problem, big, I know exactly how you feel. My dad just died. I know exactly how you feel. My dad died too. We might be very similar, but might be very different. What if their dad was an asshole and they didn't like him, and they're happy that their dad died? Oh, you understand? He raped me when I was a kid. He used to beat me. He did all this. I'm happy he's dead. It's not, you don't know how I feel. I don't know. It's just saying. Maybe
Right.
we need to eliminate that kind of idea. Stop
Yeah.
thinking you know how somebody feels. Just stop it. You don't know what you don't know.
Maybe it's
You
because
know how
we're
we
trying
feel.
to.
You know how you would feel if you were in that position from your set of circumstances and your variables and your sphere of perspectives.
It's
You know how you
maybe
would
it's because
react.
we're trying to fix it.
Of course,
Maybe,
we're fixers.
yeah, that's probably what it is. We're like, well, this happened to me. This is what I did. You're going to be okay. And you almost like, and it's almost maybe even like a way of self-preservation for the person who's trying to explain what they got through. Yeah, this happened. This is what I did, and this is how you're going to get through it. Go for it. And that doesn't help the person a lot of times. They're like, because they feel less than. You know what I mean? It's really hard when you feel like less of a human when you're
There's
a
just a
regular
knob in
human.
there's a knob in there somewhere we got to get fine tuned is all I guess I'm trying to get to. And then your intentions are going to come into it. So if you hit that authenticity frequencies and you're getting goosebumps while you're talking to somebody or they're talking to you, then you guys are hitting it off. You do know how each other feels.
Yeah, and you walk away, you're like, wow, like I didn't
Yeah.
even know all that was in there. You know, like I didn't even know that I was feeling that way, or I didn't even know that I was like stressed out because of this thing, or and just by being in front of someone, sometimes it really helps. And again, golf.
Yeah.
Playing golf with someone, you don't have to talk about the stuff that's bothering you.
Yeah.
But almost naturally, I don't know, when you and I play, or I played with some other people, when you get to like, if there is something, it eventually comes out somewhere in there in a little quiet pocket. You're like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm dealing with this. And I think I'm
Yeah.
learning to find that the best thing to say is like, I'm sorry. Like,
Yeah.
is there something I can do? And be a better listener and just be there with them compared to being a fixer,
Yeah.
compared to comparing stories, compared to all this kinds of stuff. Like when people come to us and they ask for help, we have to listen to their story, and we have to kind of like listen to where they're at because everyone's on a different path. Everyone's either floating down a river, running a race, trying to look at their own feet, all that kind of stuff. We're all doing it. And it's good to know that there's strength in numbers. So when it comes to resilience, let's talk about Theodore Roosevelt really quick because he is
Yeah.
a
You got
he
to you
is a
got you
great
got to
story
quote,
of
don't you?
resilience. So Theodore Roosevelt's resilience. Let me pull this over here really quick. Theodore Roosevelt's life is a remarkable example of resilience, demonstrating the capacity to overcome adversity and challenges. So early struggles and transformation that he had to go through. So early in life, already running into stuff. As a child, Roosevelt was often frail, suffering from asthma and other ailments, and his father encouraged him to build his physical strength, meaning push back against the thing that's hurting you or
Face your
perceived.
fears, strengthen your
Exactly.
weaknesses,
Exactly.
test your weaknesses, all those things.
And that led Roosevelt to embrace the strenuous life, engaging in rigorous exercise, boxing, and outdoor activities. This commitment to physical fitness from a frail child helped him overcome his physical limitations and build a strong and determined physique. So later, he then responded to personal loss, like a lot of us have. We've talked about it on here. We just talked about losing your father. So Roosevelt faced immense personal loss, including the deaths of his father and years later, the deaths of his wife and mother on the same day. He coped with these tragedies by seeking solace and processing his grief through physical hardship in the wilderness. Didn't we just talk about
Chop
that
down
with
some
Glenn?
trees. Yeah, we did. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, we just talked about that with
he went and
Glenn.
lived
He
in
got
a
out there in the
cabin.
wilderness and he got connected with nature. His experiences in the Dakota Badlands, where he ranched for 2 years, prepared him for the challenges of his presidency. That is such a great point right there. All of these things that he's facing, all of these perceived mountains he's got to climb
Hmm.
over, they actually prepared him for the next mountain to climb over. So mental resilience and growth. Roosevelt cultivated mental resilience through intellectual curiosity, reading widely on various subjects, and using his diverse knowledge to adapt and think critically. He also used journaling as a tool to process his thoughts and feelings, gaining insight into his strengths and weaknesses and identifying areas of growth.
Wow.
That sounds like self accountability right
Yeah,
there.
I wonder what website he went to get all these tips and learn from.
And then he had a strenuous life and purposeful actions. Roosevelt's belief in the strenuous life emphasized the importance of embracing discomfort and pursuing challenging experiences to achieve growth. His achievements as a conservationist and social reformer demonstrate his deep sense of purpose on commitment to giving back to society, further strengthening his resilience. And the conclusion here is Theodore Roosevelt's life exemplifies resilience as a learned skill built through a combination of physical fitness, intellectual curiosity, self reflection, embracing challenges, and living with purpose. You know what that sounds like to me?
A lot
That
of the
sounds
stuff
like,
that we've been talking about.
and it sounds like stoicism. It sounds like basically picking up, well, Jordan Peterson says, pick up your cross and bear the weight. Or what has he said? Pick it up and carry your own cross. Yeah, it's something like that. But it's
Yeah,
basic.
he also said something like, "You're overwhelmed by cleaning your house. Start with your sock."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, start use
So,
small rocks instead of big boulders type thing. Is that stoicism?
well, stoicism is really about basically taking accountability, understanding what you actually control and what you own. And the only thing that they actually believe you own is the ability to choose your attitude. Like everything can be taken from you. It's beyond your control, including your body. You can either fall ill and like have physical ailments that way. You can be imprisoned. You can be about to be killed, but no one can actually choose your attitude. It's actually something that comes from within. And so that comes with hardship, but that comes with picking up your own stone or picking the rock you're going to push and going for it. Like picking up whatever, what am I trying to say? Picking up basically the idea that my life is my life and I am responsible for my actions. I will not be a victim of what's going on around me. I will be present and I will live my life. Kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, this is my
Yeah.
life. You can tell me I'm a loser, but until I believe it, you know, I'm not.
Well, I like a lot of aspects of that. I like a lot of.
Yeah. So I've got this.
I don't know if I've
Well,
heard
I've
that
got
guy.
this. I've got this book on resilience from Eric Greitens.
Yeah.
If you remember him, he was actually the governor when I got shot. He
Yeah.
sent me that book.
Did he really?
Yeah, he
Yeah,
sent me
I
that
read I
over.
read one of his books about when his SEAL time and all that stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know
it
if it was a
makes
biography or not. I don't remember if that's how it exactly was, but I read that right after he got elected.
yeah, wisdom for living a better life.
Huh,
Now he
interesting.
is no longer in it anymore. But anyways, the and then there's also this, the Daily Stoic, which is a good book, and it just does like random bits daily on what's what. So you got Seneca in here, you got it's I'm not even sure of all these people, but again, it's basically about being accountable for who you are. I underlined this one, so hopefully it's good. Whenever you find yourself blaming Providence, turn it around and in your mind, and you will see that what has happened is in keeping with reason. All right, so that's kind of deep. But what it is part of the reason we fight against the things that happen is that we're also so focused on our plan that we forget that there might be a bigger plan we don't know about. It is not the case
Yeah.
that plenty is it not the case that plenty of times something we thought was a disaster turned out to be, with the passage of time, a lucky break? I can't believe I marked this and I just opened it. We also forgot that we're not the only people who matter and that our loss might be someone else's gain. This sense of being wronged is a simple awareness problem. We need to remember that all things are guided by reason, but this is but that it is a and universal reason that we cannot always see. That the surprise hurricane was the result of a butterfly flapping its wings a hemisphere away, or that the misfortune we have experienced is simply the prelude to a pleasant and enviable fortune.
When do you think
Oh,
you underlined that? Remember?
it was on a Friday years ago.
Oh,
Years
did
ago.
you have notes there to know when you
Well, I marked the page as like you know
when,
the truth is, I'm usually reading this on the toilet. So I'm like, bam, and then like I'm doing my thing, and then I fold it, I earmark the page, and it just ended up being one that was earmarked. Let me see if I got any more earmarks. And it looks like I undid something. Anyways, there's a whole bunch in here, and on a daily basis, that was just a daily reading from the Daily Stoic. There's 366 meditations of wisdom, perseverance, and the art of living. Very, very much recommend it. So the last thing I want to do, because I know we're kind of running on time here, is I want to give everybody who's listening a challenge, or not a challenge, a action to take if they want to start getting serious about something in their life they want to change. And it could be a segment of your life. Like for me, it could be sobriety or faith or fitness or whatever. It could be marriage, it could be your job, it could be the way you're looking at your own business, it could be anything like that. But it's called a SWOT analysis. And it
okay,
stands for, yeah, SWOT, SWOT. And what you do is you kind of divide a page into four quadrants. And
okay,
on the top, and then one of the boxes, you're going to put strengths. One of the boxes, you're going to put weaknesses. One of the boxes, you're going to put opportunities.
okay.
And one of the boxes, you're going to put threats. So let's look at So let's look at this through a
Strengths,
company's
weaknesses,
perspective.
opportunities, and threats.
Yes. So let's say Nike is looking at their company compared to other shoe companies, right? They
Okay.
would write down their strengths as Nike. So what are they? They're like world renowned. They're like, blah, 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 Michael Jordan, Jordans, all this kinds of stuff. What are our weaknesses? We don't make shoes in the United States. All that kind of stuff. What are our opportunities? Well, we could diversify and go into a different market like golf, hockey, something like that, where they tried to, but it didn't work out. They ended up pulling out, not making the equipment, but, left the apparel. And then you also have threats. What is a threat to our company if we were talking about Nike? And a threat to our company would be child labor. You know what I mean?
Other people becoming aware of some of the weaknesses of the company and then moving on to other companies to buy their shoes.
Right. So it's like brand and all that kind of stuff. Threats could be when people in the public find out the amount of turnover there is at Nike in order to keep their bottom line low. They actually kind of fire people every 10 years. So they
Yeah.
kind of get a little career out of you
That
and
doesn't
then
sound
push you
familiar at
away.
all.
Yeah. And so that's what like it happens a lot. And so they had so
Funny that's
basically
his shoe company too.
yeah, and they have to defend their, their brand. So that's like a threat. So you can do that with anything in your life, right? Like you can
Yeah.
actually by yourself get on a piece of paper and know there's something you got to change. Know there's something you got to change. And in that boxes, 4 boxes, you're going to have your strengths in whatever you're talking about, your weaknesses in whatever you're talking about, the opportunities, things you could change for the better, and then threats, things that could bite you in the ass if they're coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, so that's something you guys out there can use. I think we've talked about it once before, but again, it does help in a lot of situations. We don't use it enough. Companies use it all the time, and we might as well do the exact same thing.
Strength, opportunities, and threats.
Yeah. And it helps you get the more brutally honest you can be, the more things will change.
I like it
Because
because
you'll
it's a
do
little
it.
bit. It's an updated version of the pros and cons list, basically. Get the legal pad out and make a list. Um, and it covers. I don't know if there's anything that needs to be added to it. I'm sorry, I kind of on a tangent there. I was kind of
No,
analyzing it, kind of myself right there.
I
I never
like
heard
it.
that one
And
either.
hopefully people will be
Stoicism and
able.
SWAT, the two things I never heard of before.
Yeah. SWAT is one of the key things I got from getting my master's. Like that,
I'm
like
pretty sure it's SWAT, maybe SWOT.
SWOT, yeah, SWAT, swoot, whatever you want to say it.
SWOT.
SWOT, SWAT.
Yeah.
It's a good way to what?
I was gonna make a joke about the town that you grew up in having a street name that should have an A in it, but it has an O in it. And it's pronounced like it has an A in it, but I always said it like it had an O in it. Swan, Swan.
Swan. Yeah, Swan. I remember that. The good old days. The good old days. I miss it sometimes. At the same
Yeah, but
time,
but
I
I'm
feel
getting
I feel
better at thinking about how, kill the boy so the man can live, Jon Snow from Game of Thrones, or I think we talked about it with Glenn a little bit. When you want to move forward and progress your life, there are parts you have to let go of the old life, the old lifestyle. Some friends might have to go, some activities have to go, some choices have to be made differently and changed. So yeah, I miss it some too. I love you. I love the time. I miss it some too, but I'm kind of slowly kind of realizing that it's not me anymore. And I love that. It's so healthy because that was part of the biggest problem that was unhealthy for a little bit there, that I was trying to identify myself as a profession, and
yeah.
that's
That's
it's not
really
healthy either. I don't know. I think it's been kind of recent too that I'm really kind of becoming accepting it and comfortable with it, and not disassociated with it like in a negative way or anything. Like I don't think I'm ever going to be the civilian that walks around and just talks about bad about cops or anything like that.
right. But
But
there's
I certainly understand it a little bit differently now. And there's
yeah,
definitely a piece there. And that's the healthy part.
yeah,
That's the healthiest part. The piece of it. So
yeah.
I don't know.
It's nice when you're
Excited to
not
see what I'm
running
going to be.
over it. Yeah, when you grow up.
Yeah, I've always wanted to know what I was going to be when I grew up, was full growth.
Yeah.
Full
It turns
growth.
out becoming a man is getting honest. Like being a boy or a young man is just being ignorant and running into shit and just fucking knowing you know everything and just all that kind of stuff. And then finally when you become a man is when you get humble enough to be like, I don't know everything. And I can't help anybody with the tools I have right now. I obviously can't get myself out of this situation. I don't know what's going on. And really quick before I forget it, you talked about like sometimes, the best decision is to leave something or remove something from your life.
Yeah.
But someone explained it to me one time that like that's not easy. It
No.
hurts
Yeah.
to cut because you're literally cutting a piece of you off.
Yeah.
And although it hurts, you have to cut that 1% off to save the 99.
It's gangrene. It's an injury so severed that you can't keep that foot anymore, so it has to be cut off. It sucks. It
But I've
hurts.
had it forever. I've had it forever. It's mine. I've had it
And
forever.
by the
It
way,
doesn't
this is
matter.
not wishing ill on anybody that you're cutting out of your life. It's just not fitting into the puzzle right now of who you need to be.
It's for
And
your
and, it,
health.
and you're not wishing them will ill or bad, or you hope they can get the same puzzle pieces for them. And maybe that means you guys can reconnect again and be part of each other's puzzle pieces again. And maybe not. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be
I
okay.
still deal with like I'll find myself in the day every now and then. Let's be real, it happens at least once a day where I'll catch myself in the middle of like a scene of like I'm coming after a person. I'm like that doesn't it's like almost pre-programmed in there. So I'm having to grab it and be like, "No, this isn't healthy." You know, and at first that's such a good example. At first it's like, "No, don't do that." But that doesn't work because the whole
Yeah.
time I'm like, "Don't do that." I'm like yelling at myself. I should just be like, "There it goes again. Hi. There you are.
That's
I
that's
missed you. You haven't been here in a while. Great to see you." You
that's the
know?
stoicism that you were talking about. Just like you're not going to let the event control your reaction. You're going to
Yeah.
pick your own reaction.
But we got to get better at it. We got to talk about it. We got to
Yeah.
practice it. It's a learned skill, and you got to be brave enough to come on here and own it.
You got to start those. You got to relight those coals every day. You can't just use yesterday's coals to keep heated and motivated and going forward. And that could
And
be
I'm
reading the Bible. That could be exercising. That could be reading a book. It could be praying, meditating, yoga, whatever little thing it is that you do on a daily basis to get your spirits uplifted and your mental health going the right direction.
and remind
Watching one of
yourself,
our shorts does it. That's great.
yeah. And you have to remind yourself, like, you're not the most hard done to person in the world. Sometimes I can find myself throwing a little pity farty for myself, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I heard a quote, or not a quote, like a fact the other day. It was like on a YouTube short. Someone can check it to see if it's accurate or not. But someone said that to be in the top 1% of earners in the world, do you know how much you need to be making? $33,000. The top 1% earners in the world make $33,000.
Yeah.
And we think it's nothing. You know what I mean? And to someone else, it would be riches and bounty for their whole family, for all that kind of stuff. And I know that's a weird way to kind of look at it, but it's like, man, do I look at my glass half empty sometimes? And
Yeah.
I have to remind myself. It really helps doing this thing for this non-for-profit when I meet all these groups on the golf course, because by the end of it, you know, I've created a little bit of a relationship, and I literally remind them, I go, we are blessed to be upright. And people usually go, yeah, we are. And in that moment, I remember there's people in hospital beds. There are people in wheelchairs. There are people not able to participate in stuff that they want to participate because they physically can't now. And they choose, a lot of them, to be resilient. They choose a lot of them to not fucking give up. Like I see it, we saw it in that adaptive golf program. There's people who don't even have arms who've decided, I'm going to play golf no matter what. And they stuck a paddle. I've got my paddle in my wife's
Yeah.
office right now
But
to
yeah,
remind her.
I remember that guy that he had the paddle under his armpit to swing the golf club.
Yeah. I met another guy on the golf course recently, and I actually gave him my card and asked him if he wanted to come on. He could share his story. I don't remember his name off the top of my head. Young kid, uh, involved in high school sports, track and field. He got hit in the side of the head with one of those discs that you throw. It
Oh
cracked his
wow.
brain. It like cracked his skull. His brain was bleeding. They had to access his whole fucking brain from like cut from here to here, figure out the brain bleed and all that kind of stuff. And he said it took him like 8 months even to have like a complete thought. And when I met him, he was on the golf course by himself. He goes, "This is the first time I've been out since I got injured." I'm like, and I jumped on him. I'm like, you're doing so great. You know, you know, like this is so encouraging. I was like, I do a podcast with my buddy. We're idiots. We make so many mistakes, but we play golf and we try to figure out like why is this help? And we've brought people on and like all this kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And I'm so, you know, like I was telling him, I'm like, you are a walking powerhouse of motivation, resilience. Like it is incredible what you're doing out here. And to him, he's like,
He ran
yeah,
home
I'm
and
just,
shut the door and the blinds because you scared him off. Too much too
yeah,
soon, Cameron. Too much too soon. You
I
overwhelmed the
don't
poor
think,
guy.
yeah. He was waiting on the group in front of him, so I was just trying to be
Yeah.
yeah. It's yeah, I got to check myself sometimes. Like, yeah, where are you at? But I'll have people come up to me. Another thing is like a lot of them, if they've gotten sober, like I ran into a guy, looked like John Ra. He was a former police officer. I'm telling him my story. He kind of comes up behind me. There's a foursome, and he comes up next to me. He's like, "Hey, I'm 2 weeks sober." And I go, "That's fucking amazing." He's like, "Damn, is it hard?" why is it hard? And I'm like, I know, but it is worth it. Like it is so worth it. And like, all that
See
kind
now,
of stuff.
yeah. To go back on something earlier we were talking about, you know how that feels. You can say I know how you feel in alcoholism and this kind of story. I just meant generally when we're having a conversation with another person and they're going through something really shitty. Don't just say I know how you feel right away and just brush it off and walk away. I did my part. I told them I know how they feel. That's all I kind
Yeah.
of meant by it.
No, no, I totally get it. And the
Dive
same
in,
though is
understand.
with if you tell an alcoholic, I know how you feel, like people tried to tell me, I snap right back at them. Be like, no, you don't. You don't know what happened to me, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, I learned that although alcoholics are so different and they all have different stories. You could be a doctor, you could be a homeless person, like all these kinds of things. The one thing that brings us together, it's actually not that like,
To quit.
yeah,
That's the one
is
thing
that
that we do together.
we can't do it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like can't do it alone. So just being in a room with people who are struggling with the same thing, although we come from different backgrounds and different lives and all have our own personal story and we're all very prideful a lot of the times, like this isn't my fault and blah 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 blah. But you start hearing the same story through people, and especially if you go to meetings for a little bit, you hear the same persons, their story sort of changes a little bit. The energy, and then eventually it becomes something that was terrible turns into something like, thank goodness this happened. Otherwise, I wouldn't now have this relationship. If I hadn't gotten sober, a lot, you'll hear this. Like, had I not gotten sober, my daughter at this point would not be allowing me to see my grandchild.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, full on, like, I had to get sober. But since I got sober, turns out my daughter just had a baby that I can be around. You know, it's a, yeah, you see you hear
Well, that's it.
miracles.
You find your motivation wherever you find your motivation. So like that story doesn't resonate with me in my heart. Like I
Right.
don't feel like I've had it that way, but somebody else has. And so
Right.
when you saying it can hit somebody,
Hmm.
hearing it now, and man, that's why I love what we're doing here, man. We just keep
Yeah.
sharing as much tools as we can, much experience as we can. We get as many people to do the same thing. This is good, man. I don't care if everybody stops watching. This is still fun to do.
Oh, people are watching. It's actually cranking up. It's you and I gotta
I know, but
decide.
I'm saying
All
that
right.
even if it cranked down, let's just keep this ball rolling. This is too fun.
Yep,
This is too
absolutely.
good.
And thanks for listening. Thanks for listening. Please share and comment. Share and comment. Leave a post if you wanna. Have a great week. We love you.